Hello? Is this thing on? This is a tutorial video. But I ain't no tutor. I don't believe I'm qualified to give this tutorial, but you can listen to me if you want. Alternatively, don't listen to a word I'm gonna say, because who am I to say how you're meant to do things? In this video, I'm essentially going to show you how to make a frame-by-frame animation in Photoshop. However, it will be in pixel art. I know that there are a lot of pixel art apps, applications, and programs out there specifically to make pixel art, but this tutorial is mainly just how I make my animations with Photoshop, and it's long and convoluted and takes a lot of time because it's frame by frame. I like the process of making animation in Photoshop, even though there's not that many tools. There are actually a few plugins and additional things that I've seen knocking around that seem pretty cool. That might be a bit beneficial to me, so I'm gonna need to look into them. But yeah, this is just how I make pixel art animation tutorial begin. Whoa, that was fast. Here we are. I just thought I'd say I'm using Photoshop CC because I used to use Photoshop CS4, then I used Photoshop CS6. Let's just say that maybe they weren't, I didn't realize that they weren't official copies. So I've now forked out the £10 a month that it is for Photoshop, which is ridiculous. And just gonna say it now, Adobe, if you're listening, that's garbage. I'm also using, speaking of money, I'm using a Cintiq tablet. I'm going to make a video more about my tools and the things that I use, but just know that I'm using a graphics tablet throughout all this. I'm currently using a Cintiq tablet, but I don't believe that they're necessary, to be honest. For most of the time that I've been doing digital art, I've just used a very simple Wacom graphics tablet. You know, I think it was the smallest. Well, it was a medium pen and touch tablet, but I don't think they're making them anymore. I'm not the type of artist that believes that the tools are what make you. And I know it's great to have nice things, but honestly, I don't think my art has improved because I have a Cintiq tablet, but it is nice. Okay, so let's open a new file. Whoa, you can see behind the scenes, seeing what I'm planning on doing. So because this is a tutorial about making pixel art, the size of the canvas is important. So I make animations, so I want the ratio to be that of a screen, you know, a film ratio. You know, it's 1920 by 1080p. That's just how it goes. I don't make the rules. So if you condense that down, because you want to make a really small file size to draw with pixels, I've discovered my favorite size for a canvas is 400 by 225 pixels. I'm making the width 400 pixels and the height 225. This scales up to 1080p, so that's why I do it. Resolution, I'm going to keep on 300. I know that the resolution is important for like scanning and quality of image. I'm not so sure how it relates when you're doing stuff like this, but there you go. So you're going to open your file, and there you go. It's nice and small. It's down in the middle of your workstation. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to say it one more time because this is the number one question I always get. It's 400 by 225. Okay, so once you got your canvas open at 400 by 225, lots of different types of pixel art. There's lots of different types of preferences. If you wanted the type of pixel art that the pixels are very small, the sprites that you want to work with are sort of smoother, you're going to want to make a larger canvas. If you want it to be really pixely, you're going to want to make it even smaller than this. So now let's start drawing with pixels. You're going to go to pencil tool, and then you're going to change the size. I go down to the square brushes, even though you don't really need to do this. I don't think. It should be normally, if you've left the pencil tool alone, it should already be on a good size. So you're going to use the pencil tool to draw with pixels, and you're going to want it to be on width 1. So we're drawing with pixels now. Look, here we go. Look. Wow. Look, it's a landscape. Fundamentally, that's it. Now you've got your canvas open, and now you can draw with pixels. I'm not really going to go too much into how to actually draw in pixel art. I don't know whether this is the right tutorial for that, but I'm just showing you how I go about it, and so you can too. You'll notice on the right here are all my layers. This is important to keep your layers separate and keep things separate. Oftentimes what I'll do is draw out a whole scene, like a whole background. Let's see, I don't know, let's just shove in something here. So after you've got your file open, you'll notice something's missing. There is a certain window that you're going to need to actually make animation. So if you go up to top here, you go to Window, and you go all the way down to Timeline. Click on Timeline, and at the bottom here, you'll notice an animation timeline pops up. You can also do a video timeline. That's not how I do it. You're going to want it on frame animation. So once you press Create Frame Animation, you'll notice that a frame pops up. This is frame 1. Frame 1 is currently showing all the layers that are on here because they're all visible. If I get rid of all these layers, you'll notice that the frame down here is now blank. To make an animation, you're going to need more than one layer. Just down here. Here you go, I've just made 10 frames down the bottom there, and you'll notice that they're all automatically on 0 seconds. So depending on how fast you want your animation to be, you'll have to edit those. Normally, I tend to either go for 0.1 seconds, which is 10 frames a second, or if I want it to be a bit more sort of clunky, slower, I'll do 0.2 seconds a frame, which is 5 frames a second. So you got your frames, we've got them on 0.1 seconds, but currently every frame is exactly the same. I've pressed play there, and you can see that every frame is exactly the same. To start making an animation, let's start with a new layer. For example, let's say we're gonna want some leaves blowing in the wind. There you go. I've made a new layer and I've drawn some leaves and bushes in the foreground, and you can see that because this layer is visible, it's currently visible on every single frame down here. Just to show you how the layers work. If I wanted to make these layers flash on and off, what I could do is choose every other frame and then hide this layer. So now on every other frame, those leaves are now visible. Fundamentally, that's all you need to know. It's really hard to articulate this. I've made an old tutorial of how I did this, and it's my most viewed video on this channel, and it's terrible. But I've come to the realization there really is nothing special that I'm doing, and it's quite hard to find new ways of describing how I work. Depending on which layers you choose to be visible on their respective frames, dictates how your animation is going to go. So as you can see here, I've made it so those bushes blink in and out of existence by simply hiding this layer every other frame. But we don't want that. So we want these leaves to be sort of blowing in the wind a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a new layer, because you're going to treat your layers as if they're the frames. So essentially what I'm doing here is creating my own onion skin. An onion skin setting would be really useful, and I'm sure there's a plugin for that. But at the moment, all I'm going to do is turn the opacity down for this layer, and then on the second layer, redraw where I want my leaves to go. You know, I'm not an animation expert, and I really consider myself more of an illustrator, but all I can say really is just the more you animate and the more you work, the more you sort of learn what looks good. You know, certain things look better animated in different ways. And by that I mean fabric will move slightly different to hair, which will move slightly different to leaves, which will move slightly different to water. So, you know, sometimes I'm not pleased with how I've animated something, you know, and I've just got to try again, or just leave it and sort of just learn from that. So now you've got 3 layers. They're all slightly different, and we're essentially going to just turn those layers into frames. So on each frame, I'm going to make one of the layers visible and just repeat that process. So you can see now on each layer, I've made one of the layers visible, and you get the idea. So that's pretty much it. I've made a 3-frame animation that repeats. By changing the opacity, I can see where the last frame was, or the last layer was, and work on top of that. Other times I'll just sort of know where I want it, and other times One method is if I know I don't want the object to change, but I just want it to hover. So for example, if I want to make a strange portal hovering in the middle here, I'll make the portal shape. And then, so we've got one layer, layer 9 now is the portal. And I'll go to the frames down here, and on each frame, I will move the object and not press enter. I'm just moving it with the arrow keys and choosing where to place it. So that's another method I use. So these bushes down here, they look a bit jumpy. You know, I'd probably work on these a little bit more. This is just really simple to show you how it works. It looks like quite a windy day. But yeah, so this is a 3-frame animation made up of 3 layers, whereas the portal in the middle here is just a single layer that I'm moving throughout the frames. That's another technique that I do for clouds also. What I'll sometimes do is draw the whole cloud layer at the back here. This is the thing that takes the most time, and there must be a quicker method out there. Honestly, if you know, please don't hesitate to tell me how to do this. Because it takes forever. Sometimes I'll make an animation that has about 60 to 100 frames, and I'll want the clouds to keep moving. Oftentimes what I'll do is make a repeating image. So for example, as you can see here, because I was moving the clouds left, there's now a gap. I'll have to make the layer larger than the canvas. So to do a continuous cloud animation, I will need to double up the layer like this, for example. So holding that, copying that, and I'll add it onto the end. So now I've doubled up this cloud layer, I've merged them, attached them onto each other. So if I continue this animation, that layer at the back there could continuously sort of flow along the back, and then I would repeat it again. That's basically it. Thanks for watching. Yeah, don't watch my old tutorial, watch this one. This one hopefully is better. Oh, and one more thing. You may have noticed that essentially I've been making GIFs. This would work as a repeating GIF. In general, that's my approach to a lot of my animations. A lot of my shots are very static. The camera angle, at least, is very static, very still. And often it will just be of a landscape or a scene where there is some ambient atmospheric motion going on. So, you know, I try and avoid full-blown sort of action movement going on, because that takes ages, even longer. And, you know, I don't think I'm that great at it either. So like characters running and things like that. But I can show you a few sprites, for example, to show you an example of how much work goes into that. Okay, here we go. Let's have a look at this. So we've got a running animation here. Let's get all these. So I'm just gonna take these layers from that animation and pop them here, just so it's a little clearer as to what's going on. So here you can see an example of a running animation. It's not the best running animation. It's probably with the fewest amount of layers that you would need for a good running cycle. But there you go. That's what I'm capable of. And at least it shows you what you can do, hey? With Photoshop, a graphics tablet, a few pixels, and a whole lot of heart. I hope this helped a little bit, maybe. I don't know. It might have. Tell me if it did. Or tell me if this was the worst tutorial you've ever seen. Because I would believe you. I feel like there's not a lot more that I can say. But I hope this helped. You know, that's how I make pixel art animations in Photoshop. It's a long process. There might be better ways. Who knows? You probably know. And more power to you. But this is how I do it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos where I ramble on and on and on about random shit. Sometimes I make animations, but they take a long time. Keep on keeping on. I hope you're doing okay on the other side of this screen. It's a mad, mad world out there. I don't know what I'm talking about. Bye.